Here at Fort Greene Park in Brooklyn, New York, checking out the Riese Müller Nevo NuVinci. It's called the Nevo NuVinci because it's using the N380 back here. These are really cool. This is a continuously variable transmission, a planetary transmission. Inside there are these orbs and there's a pivot, and as it pivots over the orb, it's basically like changing gears, except there are no steps. It's really, really fluid. You can shift at standstill, and they're able to use this belt drive. This is a Gates carbon belt drive with CDX center drive technology. Super quiet, clean. I'm wearing my long pants today, so it's nice that not only is there a belt drive, it's not going to be as greasy and noisy and prone to kind of the shift mashing that can happen on other bikes, especially with mid drives. But it's even got a little kind of a chain cover and this metal bash guard. Very cool setup. Now, these do add a little bit of expense and a little bit of weight. It's like 5.6 pounds here versus maybe a couple or a few pounds depending on a more traditional derailleur and sprockets and things. The bike comes in a couple different sizes. So we're looking at the 18.5 inch here, and actually measured the seat tube from here to here, and it was close to like 19 and a half. I've got the geometry measurements back at the website. It also comes in a 22 inch frame size, so that's a pretty big jump, 18.5 to 22. But I think that's because this is a really sporty and potentially masculine step-through wave electric bike. A lot of times, you know, traditionally it was like, oh, there's like his and hers, high step, low step, or step-through. Now, I think people are like, well, whatever. I just want to be able to get on this thing easily. I don't want to have to swing my leg up and over the rack and potentially bump it, especially if you have this loaded up. Really cool rack on this bike, by the way. This is Riese Müller creation, I believe, but it's got this rack time compatibility, these little slots so you can slide different racks on. Apparently it's child seat compatible, and then it's got this cool Bibia rubber band adjustable strap thing. A lot of times you have bungees going from side to side. I actually think this is pretty creative and very adjustable. A lot of really cool accessories on this bike, including an ABIS cafe lock, so you kind of push this knob down, a rod inserts through the spokes so someone can't drag your bike away. They would have to lift and carry this off, which is possible, but it's a little bit heavier. This is like 59.8 pounds, so we're getting close to that 60-pound mark, and this is the smaller of the frame sizes, so probably not a huge difference. Just a little bit heavier, again, because of that NuVinci drive system, because the frame is really well reinforced. We've got a tapered head tube here, so 1.125 to 1.5 inches, a little bit more robust. Thru-axle, 15 millimeters, a little bit larger tires, Schwalbe Big Ben Plus. These are 28 by 2, so 2-inch diameter, a little bit thicker. They've got Performance Line green guard, nice reflective sidewalls, and they add some cushion along with this suspension fork, SR Suntour NCX. It's a little bit more basic than mountain bike, like air suspensions and stuff that are pretty light, but I've been told that for city application, the spring mechanism versus air, you know, it's not like something you have to fill up over time. It tends to be really responsive. I don't know, I got that feedback from the guys at Kalkoff. I was reviewing some of their bikes and like, well, it's a coil suspension. They were like, actually, for city use, like that can be preferable. Tends to keep the price a little bit lower. In this case, I think we're looking at like, what is this, $45.99, Chris?
Right, yep.
Yeah, this is Chris Nolte. He runs Propel Bikes here in Brooklyn, and you're one of the first shops that's got some of these Riese Müller bikes. They're a German brand dating back to like the late 80s is when these, I guess, friends were kind of connecting, and then in like the early 90s, they launched their first folding bicycle, and now they do a bunch of electric bikes.
Right.
I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to visit these guys over in Germany.
Yeah, we did. You know, I've been talking to them for years, going to Eurobike, checking out their bikes, and always just really impressed. Or generally some of the most impressive bikes at the show, and they're just really great for this like urban sort of environment and that sort of thing.
For sure.
And yeah, I went to their factory in Germany. It's really cool to see their whole process and the way that they build the bikes, and it's pretty cool. They're doing some really innovative things, and they build all the bikes to order, which is really nice.
That's
as well.
Awesome.
And
well, both of them mechanical engineers, the guys that founded it.
Right.
And now I think the partner of one of them is she's like, she got an MBA or something, and now she helps with the company too. So
right, yeah. So Heiko's wife, Sandra, she's actually from the States, and
cool.
she lives over there, and she's the director of business as well as branding at Riese and Muller. So
well, I wonder if she had anything to do with the colors, because this bike comes in red, white, and what's the other one?
And
Chris?
blue, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you got it. We got it. And again, I think we've got the red one here. It's the smaller size, so I don't want to be sexist here or anything, but that's like a nice feminine color, and it looks pretty good. It's also a sporty hot rod color, and you said you like this bike. It's if you were going to do a step through for yourself, it's a little bit more sporty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because of the battery placement and just the real stiffness of the frame and the components on the bike.
Yeah.
It's the type of bike. It's a step-through bike that rides like a standard frame bike, which is really
nice. It really is comfortable. Like between that suspension fork, it's 63 millimeters of travel. That's okay. So thicker, fatter tires, a little bit more comfort, and then the gel saddle, along with that really angle. Do you remember the angle on this?
It's a 45-degree.
45-degree angle, a little bit taller, and this nice, I guess I would call this a low-rise bar, but it's a little bit swept back with the ergon grips. It's more upright, and that tends to be more comfortable, at least for me, riding over bumps.
Right. Yeah, it's upright, but it's still sporty, which is a nice balance, and I think that's the nice thing that we see with a lot of their bikes, that they kind of give you a little bit more of this upright position, but you still have good control over the bike, which sometimes if you go too upright, too relaxed, it becomes difficult to manage the bike, and I think that's what a lot of people want. You don't have to be worried about being as efficient, with the electric bikes. You might as well be a little bit more comfortable.
That's true. Well, and I was asking myself while we were riding, like, why is this so comfortable? I forgot that it has this Satori little seat post suspension. There are better options out there. I think Thudbuster, they have one that's almost super squishy, like the long travel. They have a short travel. There's the a body float and stuff.
Right.
But to get one that comes with the bike like that, it takes the edge off, definitely, especially on some of this cobblestone we're riding around, and there are a lot of potholes. And
and absolutely. And one point on this also, the bike comes with 3 different springs depending on your body weight for the suspension post, and then it's also, you can adjust the preload as well, so you could really dial it in pretty well.
That's good. Okay, great. Yeah, here I am complaining. I'm sorry. Thank you for helping me to understand this better. I've gotten on these before and just been like, meh, it's okay. But I'm a pretty lightweight guy. I weigh like 135 pounds, and sometimes I don't always get the full travel going on. So Chris, can you guess what color I would get? Do you have a guess?
I'd say blue.
Blue?
Look at you. You got blue shirt.
Blue eyes.
Come on.
Is that what? Yeah. No, wrong. I would get white.
All right.
Because it would be like you'd be seen.
More visible.
You'd see more. Yeah, and I wanted to call out reflective sidewalls. White color would be reflective, and then this has integrated lights. So we have the Supernovas. These are the V6S. What was it, like 160 lumens. Yeah, very super bright. Can be angled. When I say integrated, I mean it runs right off of that main battery. You don't have to have separate AA's or something and worry about turning them on or off. It can all be done with this display up here. Same with the rear. So this is a Bosch and Muller top light mini. Pretty nice. Extra reflectors. These fenders are nice. They're aluminum alloy. They don't rattle a whole lot. Everything on this bike feels solid, including the kickstand. You can see there's a huge spring on that. It's a heavy. You kick it up, it stays up, stays down. I love that. Reinforcement eyelets on those rims, along with nipples there. So it's designed to not crack the rim if you are carrying extra weight. This is rated about 44 pounds. I mentioned the child seat piece before. So you could, either panniers or child seat. I can't say for sure, but I think this tubing is narrow enough that some of the clip-on panniers would work, and we've got a little bit of a guard on the side. If you did, I was teasing with Chris earlier about the different suspension posts. They use thicker posts for a lot of the Riese and Muller bikes, so 34.9 millimeters in diameter, and this was pretty tall. I think it was almost 400 millimeters in length, just in case you wanted to change that out. Sometimes it's fun to customize things. And then Chris was calling out, we've got a little bit of weight back here on the NuVinci hub. It's great that the battery is so far forward, but still giving you that clean, clear step-through ability. And then the battery weight, really low, centrally located. That's what you want for performance, for handling, so it's not trying to tip side to side, you're not getting crack the whip, or taking up the capacity of the rack with battery weight. This battery, it's the Powerpack 500, roughly 500 watt hours, definitely above average, but it only weighs 5.7 pounds. A lot of other electric bike batteries are like 6.5, 7, even higher than that because they're using lower quality cells. So Bosch does a great job with that. When you take it off, there's a little handle at the top. I might as well just do it. Comes with all these keys, keyed by ABUS, and then it's the same key for that Shield 5650 cafe lock. So you don't have to worry about losing things. So we'll put this in. I'm gonna try to be careful here. You don't wanna drop the battery. There we go, pull it off. It's got a nice little LED indicator on the side. So if you had this in your house and you hadn't ridden your bike for a while, you could press that and see that, oh yeah, we're still good. I don't have to put it on the charger before we go. 36 volts, 13.4 amp hours, lithium ion cells. Just gonna put this back. So it goes on pretty well, but I always double check. You don't have to have the keys in when you do this, by the way. I always give it a little push, yeah, and make sure that it locks on there. You wouldn't want to have an accident where it falls off. You can charge it on or off the frame, which is really nice for people who don't want to hassle with taking this off, or even if you lost your keys or something, you could just still keep this thing going. Nice rubber cover there. The one area that is kind of missing on this bike for me is that there's no bottle cage bosses. They might have fit here, but then you have something that you might kick when you're getting on the bike. And then while we're down here, you can see the pedals. These are a little bit more basic. They've got rubber tread, so they won't scrape your shins if you slip off, but they're not going to be quite as grippy as the bigger platform pedals. That's something I always think about replacing. And it is so nice that you've got the fenders and the lights and everything just keeping you safe. What do you see when people get bikes like this, Chris, and they want to add water and bring along hydration? How do you do it?
Yeah, there's a couple different options. I mean, you could do something up by the handlebars. There's different mounts that you can set up here, whether somebody wants to put water bottle. Sometimes people want to put their coffee cup or whatever. Yeah. There's different options for that. Sometimes people do behind the saddle, but sometimes you're limited there. If you're running the saddle down lower, you might not have as much room there.
That's a good point, because this is the smaller frame size. Right. And if you're someone with shorter legs, you bring the seat down, that suspension is already taken up a couple inches, and so if you have a bag, then the saddle collides with the bag. Just be careful. But were you saying there's some bags that have little cup holders built in?
Yeah, there's some that you could do the bag on the rear here. Some of the rack top bags will have a water bottle spot in the rear there.
Little holster.
And then we've done all sorts of creative things. There's mounting to the rack if you want it, or there's different ways you can do it. You certainly could do a strapped version here, but then you kind of lose the functionality of the low step. So yeah, that's one of the big trade-offs, trying to figure that out. But with a bike like this, depending on what you're doing, I mean, it's very capable. We were talking about the range before, and what were we saying, like 30 to 60 miles per charge, or even more? On the CX version, which we're looking at here, is like between 25 to 75 miles, depending on what assist level you're using.
Okay, yeah. We'll get into that in just maybe a second more. I was thinking about the speed on this. The top speed's 20 miles per hour. It does come in a few different configurations. Can you describe some of those, Chris? Like, we're looking at the NuVinci.
Sure. So this is a NuVinci with the standard motor. The standard motor is a CX motor, which is a higher torque than the normal performance motor, but
75 Newton meters.
75 Newton meters. So basically for Riese Müller, you either get the high torque or high speed.
I see.
And so this is the high torque version. It's also available in the high speed version. So there's the two versions of the NuVinci, and then there's the touring version, which comes with the normal derailleur, a little bit lighter weight.
Yep.
The high torque version, and then the high speed version. So those are the four different versions of this particular bike.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and why do you carry this one at your shop?
Our experience is that a lot of people really love the NuVinci with the belt drive. It's just very low maintenance. It's very clean. You're not worrying about the grease and that sort of thing. There's a lot longer intervals between your maintenance, and people really appreciate that. And I think that there aren't too many bikes out on the market right now with the belt and the NuVinci, and I think a lot of people are getting excited about that offering.
It is cool, and I think it requires a special frame, because like in this case, a lot of times the chain would go over this, I guess chainstay is what you would call it. There's usually like a triangle back here. In this case, it's dropped down. So see, you don't have to cut through the frame. You've already got an independent, what is that called? Dropout?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's designed to work really well with this, and that does make it kind of special and unique. Just the stiffness and stuff, I felt comfortable enough on this that going at higher speeds, if we were gonna get the high speed drive, I wouldn't worry too much about frame flex or wobble.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about this brand is they really think about that and think about the geometry of the bike and how is it going to handle with these higher speeds or different loads or that sort of thing. And I think they're very mindful about that.
You mentioned the motor, so I'm going to talk about any of the motors you get from Bosch are going to be measuring your rear wheel speed. So that's spinning back there. Your cadence. So that's your feet, like are you pedaling? And then how hard you're pedaling, your pedal torque. It measures all three of those signals 1,000 times per second, and it's super responsive. So while we're riding, I'll try to put the camera down here and you can see, and you'll be able to hear, it does create a distinct kind of a whining noise because this front sprocket's a little bit smaller and it spins at, what do they say? It's like 2 times per crank revolution?
2.5 times.
2.5 times. So for every pedal rotation I do, that little sprocket's going to go 2.5 times. And I think that allows the motor to operate more efficiently and gives you more torque.
Yeah, because the motor is able to operate at a higher RPM, which operates more efficiently in those circumstances. So.
For me, that's a great setup. I mean, you do hear it a little more. It's kind of a ring, ring, but it's fast, and it actually allows you to pedal at a higher RPM too. I prefer to spin. My knee is a little bit sensitive. I don't like the lumbering, like heavy feel. I like to spin. Now you can pedal slowly. It's certainly powerful enough to support you, but it also lets you spin up to 120 RPM, where some of the other mid-drives, they only get you up to like 100-ish. And that's something I notice. I like to call out about the Bosch system. So there's the motor. The Bosch website says 250 watts nominal, but then other websites say 350. I don't know. It certainly peaks a lot higher than that, maybe in the 500 plus range. Does a pretty good job. And then if we come up here to the display, earlier Chris was talking about cup holders and different options. One of the really cool things about it is there's actually a micro USB port built into the right side of the display with that little rubber cover. You can plug into that. So anyway, the display can pivot forward and backward to reduce glare, or you can completely take it off, which is excellent when you're parking at a rack. You could take the battery and this with you inside. You could charge the battery at your office or at school or something, and they'd be well protected. So put this back on. Love that there is a little bell. It's back to my safety spiel earlier. And then we've got Magura hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors. And this looks like 2-piston calipers here. These are really capable. This is kind of overkill. In some ways, you could probably deal with like 180 by 160, but to have 2 180s, that's probably in place for the speed design of this bike. And it is a little bit heavier. As I mentioned, you're getting up to that 60-pound mark. I'm gonna go ahead and launch this display. The battery is charged, it's in position. Press the power button, and there it comes to life. You can see would be 5 ticks. We're not quite full on that battery. We've got the different assist levels, a little power chart, speed in the middle, and then down here we've got some trip stats. So if you want to go in here and let's say that you prefer kilometers per hour, you hold reset and I to get to the settings menu. Otherwise, we're all set for the US right now. I'm gonna just leave it. I want to check the lights. Chris, does this have the lights that are... No? Yeah, cool. So you do get to turn the lights on and off with the display. On the high-speed one, does it force you to have them on?
By default, it does force you to have them on.
For safety, that's European
But you
thing.
can switch it as a dealer in the US. We have that ability to switch it, to make it switchable.
That's
if
nice.
you wanted. With the exception, as we just described yesterday on the M99 Pro.
Yeah, it depends on the light, but it sounds like that's an option, especially for this model that has the mid-level lights. Is there a way to turn off the backlight on the Bosch Intuvia, or is it just always on? It's kind of a faint glow.
I don't know. I always find it's easy to read, so I can't really.
I ask because sometimes it's like there are displays that are super bright that are like blinding, and that hasn't been the case for me with this, but it's nice. I'm trying to dig in deeper and get all the details for you guys. So anyway, coming back to the display, there's an I button here, but it's replicated over here too. It's much easier to reach without taking your hands off the display. So I'm gonna press it a couple times, and we'll go to the odometer. trip distance, clock, max speed, average speed, trip time, range. Range is the coolest to me because this 5 bars, those are 20% increments. It's not a lot of information to go on. I wish that Bosch showed you like battery percentage or they had more ticks, but they don't. So range. What this is doing is it's measuring, you know, how you've been riding. That could include your weight on the bike, the terrain, you know, the level of assist you've been using, and it kind of estimates, okay, here's how this rider is operating. And then it looks at how full the battery is and the level of assist that you're at, and it dynamically tells you how far it thinks you can go. So I'm gonna press plus and go to eco, 42 miles. Not bad. We got, you know, 80-ish% of the battery.
It's probably a bit below 80%.
A little bit below that, maybe like the 60, 70%.
Right.
We were just charging this before we came, so we might have just earned that 4th tick. Anyway, we arrow up to Tour, and it goes to 21, Sport, 16, Turbo, 13. So of course, the faster you go, / harder the motor is working, higher torque, you're gonna use this battery faster. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this is a pretty efficient bike. It doesn't have knobby tires. You know, it's a little bit heavier than some of the other step-through commuters I've seen, but that's because it's got all the racks and stuff. When you're riding it, it's pretty efficient a lot of times on concrete, and it's gonna go a little bit further. So anyway, that range, it's gonna vary depending on your ride style and how full your battery is. So I'm gonna hop on this thing and ride back and forth on this little runway, you know, while looking at the camera, trying to explain things to you, and then we'll go for a longer ride with frame cameras. So, okay, let's see. I'm going to start in my favorite assist mode, which is Tour. This one gives you enough power to feel it, but not so much that you're like, you know, not getting workout or using the battery super fast. So watch how quickly this responds. Now we're getting up to the higher levels, and there's a little arrow that appears on the display, and it says like shift up, shift recommendation. That might actually be turned off because I didn't see it, but that's kind of a cool feature. So it's smart enough to tell you, hey, you could be doing better, more efficient if you shift. And with this bike, again, shifting is really fluid. It's something that happens without any jumps, without any grinding. So here's the little guy. See the picture? I can make it like we're climbing a hill, and that means it's a low gear. It's really easy. Or I can go faster. I twist it backwards like this and make it flat. Now my cadence is slow, but it feels comfortable at high speed. Whoa, boy. Feeling pretty smooth, even over some of these little bumps and stuff here. There we go. You do get a bit of a hand workout. It's smooth, but you have to twist that thing like 3/4 of a turn. And the gear ratio, they say, is from negative 0.5 to 1.9. So every single rotation would be like 1.9 rotations on the rear hub. It's a pretty cool setup. Let's do this one more time. Now I'm gonna go up to turbo, and this is a little bit louder. There we go, I maxed it out again. Not super bad, but when you are on such a quiet bike, you start to notice the whining a little bit more. I don't know. I think it's a pretty great setup. I appreciate the diversity of bikes that we're getting now, and certainly the strength and the performance, but also the accessibility of a bike like this. I think Nevo was the name of it. That means like nephew or niece. I'd love it if someone chimed in about maybe the history and background of the bike. And here's Chris. How's it going, man?
All right.
Keeping up all right?
Yeah.
We've had a good time just riding around this park here. Okay, so our plan is to go up some of these hills in Fort Greene Park. People always ask about climbing, so that's something we're gonna do, see how this does. I've tested the Bosch motor, especially the CX, on some pretty intense electric mountain bikes, full suspension. I've gone up dirt paths where my tires were slipping. You know, it was like It had nothing to do with motor power. So I'm gonna tell you, I think it's gonna be great, but let's do it anyway. Let's head that way. It's gonna be hard to tell that we're on an incline when we ride, but I just want you to know. Making it up. Good job, man.
All right.
You did it. Okay, guys, now I'm going to do some off-road riding on the grass just to get a little bit of suspension. Feeling good. Riese Müller is also known for really emphasizing suspension. So one of their first bikes was the Birdie. It's a non-electric bike. They still make it. It's a folding full suspension bike. And they're all about like pure comfort suspension. So let's take a look at this seat post suspension. Again, it's probably not set up perfectly for me. Okay, we're gonna head back to the shop. I thought it'd just be fun to show you around Brooklyn. Go for it. Brakes are working pretty well. You're gonna go to, oh, there's a ramp. Cool.
Thank you.
Sure. Friendly New York City. Ready? look, you can see the light. It's working out great in here. And there's the backlighting that I was talking about before. You can, yeah, I think it's independent. It's just a soft blue. Looks pretty good. And here's the tail light in action. For the full write-up on this, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Again, really appreciate your help, Chris. He's got the shop here in Brooklyn, Propel Bikes. Check it out if you're in town. I think that's about it. Ride safe. See you next time.